Hello, welcome to the Pointy Ears podcast. My name is Archie, and welcome to an episode about the Spiderfang. Now, I've actually got my pointy ears on today. Look, little green pointy ears. I hope they look half as good on me as they do on James. I'm enjoying these. They're a bit silly. All right, so today we're going to talk about the Spiderfang. Lots of people have been talking online about like, are Spiderfang OP now? Are Spiderfang dead? Are we still able to play them even? Like, there's all these completely opposing views on them. I want to, as a Spiderfang main, I want to just sort of like shed some light on what all these changes actually mean for Spiderfang. I've spoken before about how I believed the best playstyle for Spiderfang last book was a Magic Dom one. They were a top 5 Magic faction, still under Luminef and Zinch, but certainly ahead of pretty much any other Magic faction you could think of. I guess we'd lose to cities. There's not many things we would lose to, especially considering like summoning Scuttleboss. If you got yourself Arcane Terrain, you'd be summoning it on a re-rollable +4. Oh, it was awesome before. That's gone. That's gone. And we're going to have to find something new. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the overheads, as sort of like the general pros and cons of the entire situation with Spiderfang. So some pros and cons. Pros, first of all. Arachnaroks. They have been buffed. They've got better movement now. They've gone from 8 inches to 10 inches, and they bracket a little bit better now. Their wounds have gone up from 14 to 16. I was hoping for a 3-up save. We got 2 more wounds. Is it better? I don't really think so. But it's something. We're up to 16 wounds. Fangs got more damage. Fangs used to be 4 attacks and D3 damage. Now it's 4 attacks, 3 damage, and a flat 3 damage on the mortals. So that's something. We've got marginally better shooting. We've gone from 5s and 5s up to 4s and 5s. It's still pretty bad. Scuttletide. This is actually one of the more significant changes. It used to be roll 6 dice and get a mortal wound for every 5-up. Now it's 8 dice, and it's also a fair bit faster. It now moves 8 inches each hero phase. Scuttletide is honestly the strongest endless spell in the game. I'm going to be screaming this from the rooftops until it's changed. I hope it doesn't get changed though, because I love Scuttletide. Sneaky Distraction got buffed. Sneaky Distraction is one of our spells. It gives -1 to hit to enemy units wholly within 12 of the caster. It's now no longer wholly within. As long as they're within 12, they get -1. Much better. It's really good, especially considering the massive pie plates that Arachnaroks are on. Skitterstrand and Scuttleboss movement shenanigans. Skitterstrand's got a cool way of going in and out of reserve, and the Scuttleboss can do a retreat move in the combat phase. It's pretty cool. And we've got a hero phase move in one of our new spells. Now, one other buff, even though it's not a Spiderfang model, is in Scragrod. Scragrod is a dual caster with +1, and his War Scroll spell, Fangs of the Bad Moon, is incredible for a Magic Castle playstyle. So if you're going to try and continue that in this book, take a Scragrod with you. He's going to help you massively. Now, what about the cons? We've lost the casting buff. Now, this was also a double, not even a double-edged sword. It was like double-edged, but both pointing towards your opponent, in that we'd get a +1 to cast, and we'd give them a -1 to cast whenever wholly in the light of the bad moon. That's gone. So gone are the days that like you would be easily unbinding your opponent's spells because you've got all these bonuses to unbind and they've got a -1. We've lost Gift of the Spider God. This was a spell which gave us a heal on Arachnaroks. Sub-factions. Oh my god, there are 5 sub-factions, and they're all bad for Spiderfang. So like, there's the King's Gitz, which gives you improved Moonclan Lairs. Useless for us, especially Arachnaroks, because they can't come back from Moonclan Lairs. There is the Trog subfaction, no use to us. The Squig subfaction, no use to us. The Moonclan subfaction, which I thought was a magic subfaction helps all wizards. It doesn't. You have to have the Moon Clan keyword. Oh, I was so sad when I heard this. My video a week or so ago about my first list was all in Bad Snatchers, and that list has to change subfaction now because Bad Snatchers doesn't help Spiderfang. Pretty sad about that. Next con, still no new units. We were predicting some. There was like a teaser for. We assumed it was going to be a Warcry release for Spiderfang. Still nothing. So maybe that's still to come out. The Scuttleboss is still ugly. I like Spider Riders. People always hate on Spider Riders. I love my Spider Riders. But the Scuttleboss, it's just something about the number of segments on the legs. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'll show you. I've got a picture of it later in the PowerPoint. I'll show you in a minute. And Arachnarok still have no rend. Well, they have one rend, which is like it's madness that you can get such like two rend on such silly things, and then the Arachnarok's huge fangs and huge chitinous legs are on one rend, and one damage still on the legs as well. Like, why not just change that to two rend or two damage? Like, who's it hurting? I don't understand. Okay, so that's the general pros and cons. Now we get a new Monstrous Rampage, which says, as a Monstrous Rampage, if you're against a non-monster hero, roll 1d6, and if you equal or exceed that hero's wounds characteristic, they can't fight. I think this is a misprint. I think that everybody watching this video now, you should 100% message Games Workshop, tell them they've got a misprint on this. It should be 2d6. It obviously should not be 1d6. That's just never useful. What kind of 6 wounds or less hero would this ever work against? You can't get a Mega Boss. You can't get a Tyrant. You can't even get Gotrek. Like, what's the point? It should be 2d6. Email them. Seriously, try and get this changed. It should be 2d6. The FAQ's not come out yet. This is our one little window that we can try and make a change to this. Command traits. So these are all the command traits that are available to us. Let's start with Super Nasty Venom. So that's Spiderfang hero with mount only. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little spoiler from later in the slides. This only means the Scuttleboss. That's because the Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok is not a hero. Now, we do expect this to change in the FAQ. Also email GW about that. They need to add the hero keyword and the Grok keyword to access these command traits. But as of right now, it can't. The Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok cannot take any command trait, cannot take any artifacts, not even universal ones. So right now this is only the Scuttleboss, and I think you would only want this on the Scuttleboss anyway. What it does is it doubles the damage dealt by Spider Venom, which is actually pretty good because Scuttleboss has had a little bit of a buff to its Spider Venom anyway. So we'll get to that later. Next, we've got the Clammy Hand. Pass, not good for us. Then we've got Loon Touched. Loon Touched would actually be pretty okay for us if we could take it on the Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok Spider. It gives you an extra spell as a command trait. That's pretty good, especially considering artifacts you might want to use different things. Normally I would use an Arcane Tome to get this exact same effect. Using a command trait for it instead of Master of Magic, yeah, I could see it, maybe. If they change to give us the hero keyword on that, on the wizard on Big Spider. Artifacts, so Spiderfang hero only. Headdress of Many Eyes is the first one. It's awesome. It's really good. It says only unmodified hit rolls of 5 or 6 successfully score a hit for attacks that target the bearer. This includes in shooting. It's awesome. It's really good. It kind of makes the Scuttleboss feasible. If you're ever taking Scuttleboss, you want this artifact. I know you're going to be tempted towards Totem of the Spider God for a little bit more mortal wounds. Don't be. You want Headdress of Many Eyes, 100%. What is Totem of the Spider God? It's sort of like the Croc, the Sludge Raker Snatcher thing from Cruel Boys, where it adds 1 to the number of mortal wounds caused by spider venom if unmodified hit roll was 6. Now this has changed from before. Before it was like carrying around the bad moon, so you'd get mortal wounds on a 5-up. We've got other ways of doing that now, and then toasting with the spider god will mean every 6 gets +1 mortal wound. It's okay. It's okay. Actually, I don't even think it's okay. I'm going to get to that later, though. I actually think this is really bad. And then there's Nibbler's Itty Ring, which actually is okay. So that's wizard only, which right now is just the Webspinner Shaman on foot. And it says once per battle, at the start of your hero phase, you roll a dice and you add that result to casting rolls until the end of that phase. Now, on a Webspinner Shaman on foot, that's 1 max 2 spells if he took Loon Touched, which is not that many. But if we can get Loon Touched on the Shaman on Big Spider, and we get this bonus for 3 spells, that actually could be pretty important. Getting 1d6 bonus to cast, that's kind of cool. I could see that working. I could see that working for sure. But we'll wait to see what they do in the FAQ. Then the lore. So we've got a new spell, Scuttling Terrors. This is the hero phase move. So you pick a target, I think it's Holy Within. Yeah, Holy Within 18 inches. Casting value 6, and it has to be a Spiderfang unit. And that unit can make a normal move, which is 10 inches, unless it's the Shaman on foot. So that's pretty cool. A hero phase move. That means we get a lot more mobility. It has to be on a unit which can actually use it. So I'll get to that again later. I'll think about Scuttling Terrors. I think it's okay. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting to think about all the things you could do with that. Sneaky Distraction is buffed. It used to be -1 to hit for enemies wholly within 12. Now they just have to be within 12. It's much better, especially on how big Arachnaroks are. So if you're using that on the Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok, really good spell. And then Curse of the Spider God, it's still never going to get used. One of the reasons for that is we deal mortal wounds. We're not really bothered about them failing on 2s. We're pretty okay against those high armor save sort of war scrolls already. Curse of the Spider God. You might take it if you were not allying in, but splashing a bit of Spiderfang wizards in your other flavors of Gitz. It might help your squigs out or something similar. But in a heavily Spiderfang list, no, you wouldn't take this. All right, going on to the War Scroll. So here's our big guy. This was our main dude that we'd use every time, every game in the previous Battletome. The Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok Spider. Now he's still 270 points, which is pretty good. His movement's gone up to 10, like I said before. And he's also got 2 more shots. He used to only get 8 shots. Now he's got 10. That's from the goblins on top. Now, it's still not much. So that means we've gone from 8 shots 5s and 5s to 10 shots 4s and 5s. We're getting maybe 1 more armor save for the enemy to have to roll. It's not great. But it's something. It's something. At least it's now standardized with Spider Riders, so everything's just 10. So at least you don't have to think, oh no, hold on. This is the big spider and there's only 8 dudes, but the Warparty is 10 dudes. It's now 10 for everything. So that at least makes that easier, and it's in the positive direction at least. Now, right now it lacks both the Grot and Hero keywords. Get them emailed, get that changed. Remember to also email about the Monstrous Rampage. It should be 2d6. Come on. And it's also had Venom of the Spider God nerfed. Now, what Venom of the Spider God used to do is it would double the amount of mortal wounds dealt by spider venom. Now, it's another croc ability where it's +1 on 6s. Okay? So, we'll give you an example. This exact same War Scroll in the last Battletome, if it self-cast Venom of the Spider God, its fangs would be 4 attacks, and if under the light of the bad moon, 5s and 6s would each do 2d3 mortal wounds. Okay, so I'm going to add that together for a total of 4d3 mortal wounds. Now, a normal 6 would do 3, and a normal 5 would do 3, but now the 3 would be +1 from casting Venom of the Spider God. So instead of 4d3 mortal wounds, we're going to 7 mortal wounds. Is it better? On average, no. On average, we're now weaker. Isn't that crazy? They've actually reduced the number of mortal wounds that you do on the turn that you buff yourself and go in. I just find that really interesting. We've gone from 43 to 7. 43 is average 8, by the way, and can spike higher. I had a game right before the Battletome change where I got 17 mortal wounds dealt. 17. And that's just so much harder to do now. It's so much harder. So yeah, actually, it's weaker. It's weaker. Now, that being said, we've got +2 wounds. That is important. And Sneaky Distraction is better. I think this War Scroll is now better as a splash for other flavors of Gitz, because they could just use it to be a monster for Roar, obviously not a monster for using its own Monstrous Rampage, and also casting Sneaky Distraction and having the +1 to +1 Unbind is pretty good. It casts endless spells really well, especially Scuttleboss, which is an auto-include in all Gitz lists. I'm going to say that every video. So I think you will see play in other kinds of Gitz. But I think you'll see less play in pure Spiderfang, potentially. I don't think Venom of the Spider God is as good anymore. I think that's a bit of a shame. Okay, moving on to the next War Scroll, we've got the Webspinner Shaman. Now, this guy actually got a glow up. He's cheaper. He's gone from 85 down to 65. He's gained a 5-up ward, which is really cool. The Fungoid Cave Shaman used to have this ward, and we've just like stolen it from him, which I think is great. He still gets the buff. I wrote Big Mama there. So the big Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok, all Spiderfang wizards wholly within 12 of it get +1 to cast an Unbind. This guy can benefit from it, and his War Scroll spell got improved. So it used to be terrible. It used to give Spiderfang units run and shoot, which is like, I'm going to run and do my 10 shots, 5s and 5s. Huh? It was awful. Now, it's still run and shoot, but it's run, shoot, and or charge. So ignore the shoot, because that's whatever, but it gives us run and charge. That's actually okay. That's actually pretty okay. If you combine that with a hero phase move, say on a Scuttleboss, then a Scuttleboss can move 10 inches in the hero phase and then auto run 16 inches in the movement phase before charging, which is pretty speedy, to be honest. Yeah, I think that's decent. And he's also our Galatian champion. He's good. I like the Webspinner Shaman. He's going to see more play in other kinds of Gitz, and he's also going to be great in Spiderfang. Scuttleboss and Gigantic Spider. Okay, this guy. So the combo now on him is basically the same as the combo before. Before, we'd give him Monstrous Mount. We'd give him Black Fang, I think it was an artifact. And then we'd have Totem of the Spider God on something near him. And that meant when we cast Venom of the Spider God, it would double his mortal wounds, and Monstrous Mount would double the mortal wounds, and then they would just combine, and he'd get up to like 8 mortal wounds per attack. He could do something similar now. So his base mortal wounds that he deals per attack is now 2. Oh, that's right. It wasn't 8 before. It would go... Right. Start again. So previously, he would do 1 mortal wound per attack. He has 8 attacks. And that 1 could be doubled twice to get to 4. Now it's a base of 2, but we only have one way of doubling it. This is probably why Venom of the Spider God got nerfed. We only have one way of doubling it, so the 2 goes to 4. So 8 attacks, 5s and 6s are 4 mortal wounds, assuming that he's holding the new. It was a command trait, Super Nasty Venom. Okay, so that's pretty good. We also give him the artifact to make him a lot tankier. Pretty good. We like this. And it's actually much more feasible to sacrifice him now. It used to be that no one would play this combo just because you'd stop getting command points. And we need our command points for inspiring presence and stuff. But now, because we get stuff like Scragrot, who is also auto-include, and he's a War Master, it's actually a good thing to lose your Chosen General. Because if you lose your Chosen General, then you're getting Heroic Leadership on a 2-up, and you're still getting your command points per turn, which is awesome. Okay, so it's good to sacrifice him. So you want to take these things on him, and you want to charge him up. You want to get a positive trade. He's only 130 points. Get a positive trade for something with a high armor save, and you're just loving life. He's pretty good. You could honestly take him with other kinds of Gitz as well, especially because you don't have to take MoonClan keyword generals, because Scragrot's going to give you the same effect. You're still going to get Squighurt as battle line, Squighopper as battle line, and Boingrots as battle line. Obviously, Danko Troggoth's still going to be a great general. So yes, Scuttleboss and Gigantic Spider. His other ability is he has an end of combat phase retreat. Now this is once per combat phase. It's once per battle, and he can also pull in a Spider Rider unit, or is it a Spiderfang unit? Now I've got to check. Is it a Spider Rider unit or a Spiderfang unit? Oh no, hold on. Let me get my phone. I need to check this. I feel like it might be a Spiderfang unit. I should have checked this before. Oh, it is Spider Rider. Okay, so we can pull a friendly Spider Rider unit within 12, including himself, and retreat at the end of a combat phase. And the thing I did look up is the wording of retreat, because you think, oh, what's a retreat? What if I'm not within, what if I'm not within 3 inches of an enemy? What if I killed them? What happens then? Can I still do this? Yes. Look, retreat. When you pick a unit to retreat, you can move each model in that unit a distance in inches, equal to or less than the move characteristic shown on that unit's war scroll. Wait, hold on. No, I read something else. No, we can't do a retreat. It says, never mind. I was reading the wrong thing. Under 8.2, under retreat, it seems okay. But under 8.0, you can pick one friendly unit that was within 3 of an enemy unit and declare it will retreat. Ah, that's annoying. Okay, so no, that's not as good anymore. So they have to be within 3 at the end of the combat phase in order to call a retreat. Okay, so that's not as good as I thought it was, but it's still pretty good, especially when you've got that tankiness from the headdress of many eyes. It's doable. It's something to keep in mind. It probably won't happen every game, but you might be able to do a charge, get some damage in. You're still technically in combat, and then you retreat out onto an objective or something. Loads of things you could do with it. So yeah, Scuttleboss and Gigantic Spider. Love this guy. I think he is very good to take right now. But yeah, look, just do me a favor and look at the spider legs. Look at that. Count how many segments there are. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just too many. That's not how many spiders have, is it? I don't think it is. I could see 3. 3 is about the right number, but 4? It just looks like it's, like a macaroni necklace. That's what it reminds me of. Anyway, that's the Scuttleboss. All right, moving on to our battle line options. This is the Spider Rider War Scroll. So it's still 90 per 5. Hooray! Spider Riders are great. All right, I still love Spider Riders. If you're playing other kinds of Gitz, consider Spider Riders as screens, especially. They're really good. The best in allied into or splashed into trolls, because trolls like to use Unleash Hell, and Spider Riders like to sit there and die. So you put them in front of your trolls, and they'll Unleash Hell. And even if the Spider Riders don't die, because Rock Guts have 2-inch range, they could just, they just do a little reach over the Spider Rider and they bonk whatever's fighting them. Great combo of trolls. Now, they're still crazy cheap, so that's great, 90 points. And Rippers isn't competing for that spot anymore because Rippers is up to 110 now. Their shooting has gotten slightly better, same as the Arachnaroks, but I'll tell you how much better it is. Previously, the 10 shots, 5s and 5s meant you'd average about 1.1 armor saves for your opponent to make. Now, it averages 1.7. It's not even got up by 1. How sad is that? And it would be better if it was 5s and 4s. That would be much better for us, because then we'd be able to use all-out attack and get to 4s and 4s, and then we'd be at 2.5, which would be pretty cool. But this is still not great. It's still not great. I did like it, however. The one time I used Unleash Hell with this, it did mean that you could Unleash Hell and not be hitting on 6s. That was fun. But it's still pretty bad. Now, let's talk about Totem of the Spider God and Venom of the Spider God. I mentioned these two things before. They're the Croc effect from Cruel Boys, meaning unmodified 6s get +1. Now, these guys do 1 mortal wound on a 6. That would become 3 mortal wounds on a 6. So I've heard a lot of people getting extremely hyped about this, saying that Spider Rider is going to be OP now. On average, it's the same. It's completely the same. And I'll tell you why. Before, you would cast Venom of the Spider God, and then just be in the light of the Bad Moon, and you do 2 mortal wounds on a 5, 2 mortal wounds on a 6. Now, with casting Venom of the Spider God, and having to be wholly within 12 of whoever's holding Totem of the Spider God, you get 1 mortal wound on a 5, 3 and a 6. 2 and 2 is the same as 1 and 3. Sorry. They do the exact same damage, but now you can't just receive the buff and fly off. You have to still be within range of the Arachnarok now. It's worse. It's worse than before. But I've got one more bullet point down the bottom as some hope. Okay? So if we just use Spiderfang War Scrolls, it's worse. How do we make it better? Well, there's all these things in the book that buff now. And I've not tested this yet, but I would love to test that sort of build, Totem and Venom, combined with Spore Splatters. So Spore Splatters give all friendly units, or friendly Gloomspite Gitz units, wholly within 9, +1 attack. That means suddenly our 5 Spider Riders have 15 Spiderfang attacks, which would mean they have better output. There is another way to gain +1 attack, but it's not reliable. It's from Sneaky Snufflers. So there's some hope. Try Spore Splatters. Maybe it's okay. I've bought some because I didn't have them before. I'm going to convert some spidery Spore Splatters up. Pretty excited. Instead of the spore ball, I'm going to just have like a little gooey spider on the end and just see what that does. And I'm going to try it out, but it's hope. It's hope. I cannot guarantee that this will work or be effective or anything, but try it. It might be okay. Now we have another battle line option. Hooray! This is something that they added in a battle scroll. It was the one in winter. And it's the Arachnarok Spider with Warparty. Okay, so now it's 230 points. It's gone up 5. Fine. And it's lost its ability to reroll charges, but it now counts as 10 on objectives. Okay. But it's still, it's 16 wounds for 230. That's not terribly effective. But I've written some hope. Okay, and that's because there's 2 things we can do with this. One, we've got movement shenanigans. We can move it about. With Scuttling Terrors, with the Grim Scuttle ability, we can get these things where we want them to be. 2, there's now a way to buff them to make them tankier. And that's with Sneaky Snufflers. Now, I mentioned that they were a way to gain an attack. That's not why we're going to consider buffing our Warparty with them. It's because they can pretty reliably give a 5-up ward. Now our 16 wounds doesn't seem so bad. Our 16 wounds is effectively 24 wounds now. That's okay. That's something. You can almost start to think of these guys as mini Gargants. Like, counting as 10, effectively 24 wounds when they have the 5-up save. You may be getting Sneaky Distraction behind them, and the Arachnarok behind them. Yeah, there's some things you could do. Maybe. And even though they're not as good as Gargants, and you might think, why not just play Gargants then? Gargants don't get Scuttletied. And Scuttletied, when you're trying to hold an objective and they're having to move onto it, charge onto it, each time taking Scuttletied damage, maybe the new way of playing Spiderfang is going to become this super, like, zone controlling, counting as extra on objectives, kind of lots of spell damage from afar, buffing your guys. Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe instead of Spider Riders, we run these. Maybe. I'm just saying, a Mystic Shield and a 5-up ward with Sneaky Distraction behind it, it's kind of okay. Alright, and then I think this is our last War Scroll. Oh no, second last War Scroll. This is the Flinger. I've forgotten to write Flinger. I've still got Warparty up there, but this is the Flinger. And it's gone up to 270 points. It's too expensive. Sorry, it's much too expensive. It's not a battle line option either, so no thanks. It does have a new weapon profile for its Flinger. It now can have up to 20 shots based on how many models are in the unit it's targeting. 36-inch range, which is pretty long range. And it's 3 ups, no rend, 1 damage. Okay. Well, that will mean not a lot. Well, it's something. If you're fighting against a 20 wound unit, and you got 3s and 3s, or not 20 wounds, sorry, a 20 model unit, 3s and 3s, then you're going to get 2/3, so that's what? Multiplied by 4 divided by 9. So about, it's about 9 armor saves you can make them make. So there were 4-up save. It's about 4.5 wounds taken. It's okay. Alright, so I've written some hope again. There's another thing that the Flinger does, and that is whenever you deal a wound from its profile, its catapulty thing, on a 2-up, you have the movement characteristic of the unit you hit. It does combo with Jaws. So maybe that's one way to play it. And another way to play it is we now have a way of improving rend. So if we pair this with a Gobapalooza, or multiple Gobapaloozas, as is possible to do right now because they haven't been given the unique keyword, we could get this to a fair amount of rend. And maybe with all that attack, maybe that's actually pretty good if you're going against something which has a lot of models in a unit. If you're against Gargants with this, you're crying. You're absolutely crying. But maybe. Okay, so that's the hope for the Flinger, is pair it with Gobapalooza. So I wanted, even though I'm being a bit negative about some of these War Scrolls, there is some things that we can now try that might work. So put the Gobapalooza with the Flinger for extra rend. Put the Snufflers with the Warparty for the 5-up ward save. And put the Spore Splatter Fanatics with the Spider Riders for +1 attack. Last War Scroll, and that's the Skitterstrand Arachnarok. Now, this is actually, in Grimscuttle, become really, really lore-friendly, because the Grimscuttle tribe, they're known for following Skitterstrands through their little web portals and getting to different places where they're not supposed to be. That's the whole thing. And now that's actually something you can do in their subfaction, which is fun, that's cool. It's not very good, it's not very competitive, but oh well. It has gone up a lot of points. It used to be 140, now it's 200. Ouch. Or was it 160? It might have been 160 before. Yeah, that's what it was. And in Grimscuttle, yeah, like I said, bring 2 units into reserve with it. But at the end of combat phase, the Skitterstrand can go back into reserve. So there is one way you could play it, and that is you could take a couple units of Spider Riders, or maybe 1 Spider Rider, 1 Warparty, take them into reserve with it, put the Skitterstrand down, Spider Riders in front, Warparty behind, and then in the combat phase, back into reserve. And now these units are holding this ground, and you're going to summon Scuttletide right in front of them, and your Skitterstrand is free to come back in another turn. I think that's the way to place Grimscuttle, if you're going to pick Grimscuttle. I'm not saying you necessarily should, but that's maybe the best use for Grimscuttle, is to use the Skitterstrand like a bus. It's a bus. So just pop in, there's your units, pop back out, and the units stay. Problem is, they come down in the movement phase, so you can't give them, for example, the 5-up ward save or a Mystic Shield. So that's a bit sad. But yeah, all right, something to consider. Now, let's try to make a list. And I have deliberated about this pretty much for hours every single day since the release on how to make a Spiderfang list. And I don't think people are going to like my final list. It's not Spiderfang enough. I wanted to play that game of Magic Castle. I wanted to play that game of summoning Scuttletide and doing all these effects from afar and controlling the map, being tanky enough to take a few hits, and in that time, my endless spells and Scragrot are going to be doing crazy damage to their juicier targets. I've made a list that deals with that. Now, one thing it had to be was a one drop. That was the first thing. And I thought, all right, to be a one drop, I need a monster. First thought was Skitterstrand in Grimscuttle, and I thought about that for a while, and I felt like it was too much of a downside that it would bring the Warparty down without the 5-up ward save. So I've ended up not going for that. I've ended up instead going for a Squig Herd. I'm using a Squig Herd policy in order to sort of make my first bit of ground. And in my monster slot, I've actually put in an Incarnate. So here's my list. As a general, I'm not going to use the Arachnarok for this, but if they do fix the Arachnarok, I think I would change the Scuttleboss to the Webspinner Shaman on Arachnarok, and then I would downgrade one of the war parties down to Spider Riders. Okay, but yeah, so for now, my general is the Scuttleboss, Super Nasty Venom, and Headdress of Many Eyes, the ones we discussed earlier, and he's going to be bonded to the Kronspine. That's because Scuttleboss is the most likely one to die. He's going to be first to die. And then we'll be able to have a wild Incarnate, which is always nice. So that's our Scuttleboss. We're going to have the Squig Boss, so that we can hero phase move our Squigs. We're going to have Scragrot, so we can do from 24 inches away. We're going to start murdering Galatian champions and other things that are weak to mortal wounds. He's also going to be the guy casting our endless spells. What about our endless spells? We've got two. We've got Scuttletide and Quicksilver Swords. Why Quicksilver Swords? Because it's a power pair with Scuttletide. What they can do is they can fly together, and whatever they target is going to have 20 dice rolled against it. Every 5-up's a mortal wound, and 12 of those are non-negatable. You're just going to go about murdering stuff. Scuttletide is going to do other things at the same time. Now, the other thing that's good about it is your opponent can only dispel one endless spell max per turn, and they always go for swords. Even though Scuttletide is that much more impactful, they always go for swords because its casting value is 6, where Scuttletide is 7. Now that means that it's protecting Scuttletide, which is great. We want to protect Scuttletide. It's our biggest carry. It's going to do more damage than any other unit in this list. Seriously, if you don't believe me, just try out Scuttletide for one game. You'll see for yourself. We're going to take 2 war parties. Now, the war parties, their job is to take the 5-up buff, and then they're going to jump in, they're going to hold locations, hold spots. But they're not going to be the first to go. First things to try and hold these spots are going to be the Squig Herd. They're going to run in, they're going to do a bunch of damage, and then the enemy's going to be stuck in their deployment zone, as if we're Nurgle flies, and they have to deal with the Squig Herd turn 1, and then hopefully we're going to get back a half-strength Squig Herd on turn 2, or probably at the end of our turn 2. And then, what else have we got with the Squig Herd? To buff the Squig Herd, we've got the Squig Boss, and we've also got Gobbapalooza. Gobbapalooza can give them +1 rend, can give them Mystic Shield, and can give them Squig Lure, which is reroll charges, really important for Squigs. We also have Sneaky Snufflers in this list. Sneaky Snufflers, their main idea is to be buffing our war parties, but turn 1 we'll probably buff the Squig Herd instead. If we can give that a 5-up ward, it's going to be that much more problematic for our opponent. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I think this is an okay list. I'm not yet convinced that the war parties are actually better than other scrolls could be. I mean, we're in Jaws of Mork anyway, just for the Squig Herd. It's possible that they should just be Squig Hoppers. And then we've got another 100 points left over. That's possibly a better play. But I wanted to try out some Spiderfang units, even though we've got no riders in here. We haven't got the most popular guy, the Webspinner Shaman, on Arachnarok. We have no Webspinner Shamans, actually. But we're in a battle regimen, and this is, I think, a very interesting list to play. I think it's a very high skill level list, because you have to know just how much damage you can take on things like the Incarnate, on things like your Squig Herd, and especially on the Arachnaroks. Using Arachnaroks as tanks, unheard of up until now. But yeah, give it a try. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening. This has been the Pointy Ears Podcast. My name is Archie. Goodbye.